Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're here with the Warriors of Chaos once again, going to be facing up against the High Elves. This time I decided to bring a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, Lore of Death, up on a Chaos Dragon. Haven't used the Chaos Dragon too much, so I figured I'd give it a shot here. It's a bit of a risk against the High Elves because a Star Dragon, I'm pretty sure, will put it down. They also have some other very strong flying units, can potentially take a very strong flying force. So it is a bit of a risk to bring the Chaos Sorcerer up on a dragon. But I've also got a Exalted Hero on a Manticore to help protect him in the air, as well as these Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes to potentially support in a aerial engagement. Thankfully for me, my opponent hasn't brought any air units, giving me air superiority. For the rest of the build, I've got a main line of Chaos Marauders with great weapons for a nice cheap armor-piercing option. It's good to go wide against the High Elves since they have a hard time going wide and struggle with, high model counts to a relative extent. I've also got 4 units of Forsaken, 2 on each flank for some fast attack. For our anti-infantry, we've got 2 Chaos Chariots. A very cheap, cost-effective chariot, can do a lot of shock damage to infantry, even heavily armored infantry. And that's about it for my build. For my opponent, he's got Tyrion on horseback carrying Sunfang and the Heart of Averlorn, I believe. Yes, both items. He's also got 2 units of Swordmasters of Hoeth, 1 White Lions of Trace, supported by 2 Archers, and 4 units of Dragon Princes. Yes, indeed, this is a 4 Dragon Prince build. So these guys are an incredibly powerful heavy shock cavalry. They will lose one-on-one to Chaos Knights with Lances, but Chaos Knights are more expensive. These guys have a lot going for them as well. 80 charge bonus, 25% physical resistance, martial mastery, very, very strong. You can see I'm kiting around one of the units here with these Marauder Horsemen and throwing axes, and I haven't brought any dedicated anti-large. So this is potentially going to be a huge problem for me. But, I do have some tools, and let's see how we're able to do. So this unit, I've decided, okay, we're going to just kite these guys away with the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. You can see I'm already doing some really nice damage, getting some really great value there. We've tied up this other unit with the Manticore here, and just inundated it with Forsaken. Forsaken, although they don't have the best, armor-piercing stats per se, they do have a very strong overall weapon strength and great melee attack. And, 63 total weapon strength means they are going to be making square contact, even on a, heavily armored and physical resistance unit like these Dragon Princes. You can see they've already done a ton of damage. They are dropping their martial mastery off. This unit of Dragon Princes is, fairly healthy so far. We've flown over our dragon, done a little bit of a breath attack here on Tyrion. My opponent hasn't brought any magic whatsoever, so the only healing that Tyrion is going to get is going to come from the Heart of Averlorn. Also dropped a Fate of Buna on this Swordmaster of Hoeth, dropping their martial prowess off. However, they are still going to cleave through these Marauders at an alarming rate. Marauders just cannot even touch these Swordmasters. You can see they're doing a little bit of damage here to these White Lions, tiny bit of damage to the Swordmasters, but mostly just getting cleaned up. These other units of Dragon Princes over on this flank, I don't have a great answer for at this point. We've just sicked the Forsaken on them. Since Forsaken have very fast move speed, they can at least keep up with some of the unit models like this and keep them tied down. Meanwhile, in this back line, these other units of Dragon Princes are continuing to attempt to run down the Marauders. And I've decided, you know what, we're going to pull the Chariots into a duty they're not really meant for and use them to tie down these units of cavalry. So we're tying down the cavalry, the Dragon Princes here with the Chariots. Then I'm going to pull in close with the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes and get the armor-piercing missiles from them to do the damage. These Chaos Chariots do have a 90 armor, so they're not going to take a ton of damage from the Dragon Princes unless the Dragon Princes get a clean charge onto them. So if I can use them kind of as an interrupting mechanism, they're not going to take a whole lot of damage, and I should be able to tie down, my opposing cavalry very easily. I did get tangled up with Tyrion there with my Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Tried to come down on these archers and paid the price for it. Tyrion's a very scary duelist. He's also giving it to that Exalted Hero currently, but I just really was trying to get on these archers. They have excellent range and pretty decent armor-piercing stats for being a, quote-unquote non-armor-piercing missile. They have done quite a bit of damage to this Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Death, so I'm going to have to be very, very careful. Taking some fire like this is going to be really bad, so I'm going to get my micro on and try and kind of dodge around and change direction so that when the archers volley, I can maybe pull away from their volley. And if you stay towards the outside of the range, it gives you more time to react to the volley, so you can try and dodge the arrows as much as possible. It's a tricky maneuvering, but it can be done, and it can be a matter of life and death in a close battle like this. We've got another unit of Dragon Princes down, so that's 2 down. These Forsaken chased all all the way, you know, to the flank, chasing that other one off. So now we are pulling around the MLG Marauders over here. Going to be getting some armor-piercing axes onto these Dragon Princes now. I'm a huge fan of the Marauders with throwing axes. You can see we're going to get another interrupting charge here with these Dragon Princes. They actually, I believe, were targeted on my infantry, so they didn't get a charge order onto the chariots, and you can see the chariots aren't taking a whole lot of damage, and we have been able to tie down these two units here. Going to be chucking in the throwing axes from the side. Such a cost-effective unit. I love the throwing axe variants of the Centaurs and the Marauders. Very, very strong. You can see I'm just continuing to maneuver around with my Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Death, you know, putting the moves on these archers, trying to dodge as many shots as possible. I'm just glad they're not targeting my Marauders, because at only 15 armor and with no missile block chance, these Marauders will get shredded by opposing missiles. You can see the missiles coming in from the side there doing a lot of work. So any fire that my opponent dedicates to my Chaos Sorcerer Lord is fine with me. I can dodge around with him, and it's protecting my Marauders to an extent. Most of my Marauders are dead at this point, but they have been able to do quite a bit of damage here. This one Swordmaster of Hoeth only racking up 48 kills against cheap infantry is great. This other one's got 160 kills, which is, you know, absolutely amazing. The Manticore is currently being sacrificed here just to kind of hold this pocket in place while we try and finish off the Dragon Princes. That's really the main threat of my opponent's army at this point. If I can bring them down, then I can use the chariots to finish off my opponent's infantry. Tyrion himself won't be able to finish off the chariots, only being one unit model, you know, he can't tie all of them down. So at this point, if we can finish off the Dragon Princes, we're going to be in pretty good shape. The balance of power is still very close, slightly in my favor, but still definitely winnable for the High Elves here. Looks like, unfortunately, the attack order was dropped on this unit of Dragon Princes, and that is one issue I've noticed with Mortal Empires. They said that they had supposedly fixed it with the release of the, you know, Mortal Empires, the issue with Game 2 of units dropping their attack orders, but they definitely didn't fix it. It's a beautiful charge here coming through on the chariots, finally getting onto these archers, doing some amazing shock damage. They were at full health before that charge and just took about, you know, 30% of their HP in shock damage from a single charge. That's why I love these Chaos Chariots. They're super cheap and they can do a ton of shock damage on the charge. And in a late game scenario like this, where I've cleaned up my opponent's mobility, now I can come in with the chariots, I can compromise his backline, and there's really nothing he can do about it, which means I can now bring up my Sorcerer Lord, who's been regenerating some magic. Going to be able to cast some Spirit Leeches to try and finish off Tyrion here, maybe some Dragon Breaths as well. And yeah, my superior mobility at this point is going to win me the game. You can see the balance of power is starting to shift more heavily in my favor. We're bringing around the chariots now, just doing some nice cycle charging here, and going to be getting into these Swordmasters. Beautiful bloody side charge there, and the Marauder Horsemen as well. Absolutely clutch here. Having used all of their ammo, we're now going to charge in, and although they will definitely lose this prolonged combat, you know, they'll do a little bit of impact and shock damage on the charge, and just be able to tie down a lot of these forces. So it allows my infantry to then come in and deal, you know, the main damage here without having been charged by the opposing High Elf infantry. So we'll take in a little bit of cinematics here as the battle wraps up, and we've got the dragon flying over to try and deal with Tyrion. Tyrion's still very, very scary, so I definitely don't want to come down in melee against him. So we're just going to use the Spirit Leech and the Dragon Breaths to see if we can finish his leadership off, so we don't actually have to fight him. You know, Tyrion's very, very scary, especially with the Heart of Averlorn in the late game. Can be, you know, potentially game-changing, so don't want to even give him the chance to kill my lord. So we're just going to use our ranged attacks and magic to take him down. So with the shattering of the last of the infantry, we're going to now bring the big angry infantry blob of Chaos Warriors. Beautiful scorch there from Tyrion in the late game, getting a ton of kills, but not quite going to be enough to bring this back, and it is going to be a GG for the High Elves. So hope you guys enjoyed watching this battle. It was a fun battle. You know, the 4 Dragon Prince build is definitely still pretty scary, and the fact that I didn't bring any anti-large, you know, I definitely regret. In future battles with the High Elves, you'll see me bring, you know, potentially a Shaggoth, just because they do have 70 armor and a little bit of missile resistance, so the High Elf missiles can't do too much against them. Shaggoths are very good in this matchup. You know, Chaos Warriors with Halberds can potentially be good here, although they will struggle with things like White Lions and Swordmasters, so it's a bit of give and take. But for this battle, in terms of the army breakdown, the Marauder Horsemen with the throwing axes were absolutely clutch in that matchup. really doing damage to all these units of Dragon Princes and just, you know, continually dragging them down with those throwing axes. Great armor piercing and great mobility. I'm a huge fan of these guys. The chariots as well, actually doing quite a bit of work. You know, they aren't really designed for an anti-cav role, but they can be used to interrupt high mass units like, you know, cavalry and so on. So the fact that my opponent didn't get his charge order onto the chariots themselves means that I was able to, you know, kind of get some interrupting moves and then use the Marauder Horsemen in conjunction to deal some nice armor-piercing damage. Forsaken, some of them didn't do great. This one getting 73 kills is really, really nice. Marauders didn't do a whole lot, but again, they're very cheap infantry up against elite high elf infantry, so the kills they do get are, you know, very cost-effective. Exalted Hero was mostly used as a distraction tool, and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord I almost threw away early on, which would have been devastating. But, you know, we were able to bring it back there in the end. For my opponent's build, one of the units of Swordmasters, 189 kills, 69 on this one. So you can see the difference there the Fate of Buna makes. Even against these cheap infantry like Marauders, it just allows them to trade much more effectively with the Swordmasters. Fate of Buna is just super strong against the High Elves, because they can potentially drop martial prowess or martial mastery before they get into combat or shortly thereafter, and you know, it can definitely change the game. So I really like Lore of Death in this matchup. Would have liked to have seen my opponent probably bring Lore of High Magic here. Tempest can potentially be good in protecting against flying units, and of course Apotheosis combined with Shield of Sapphire makes your units very tanky. So I would have liked to have seen that there, but Tyrion, I do like the pick of Tyrion in this matchup. There is an argument to be made for a Star Dragon Lord as well. Star Dragons are very, very powerful, but you know, Tyrion can definitely hold his own. The archers, you know, didn't get a whole lot of work done, but did do some nice damage against my monstrous units. Potentially good here, although Lothern Seaguard can be a little bit better. Personally, when I'm using the 4 Dragon Prince build, I like to go with just the White Lions because they're a little bit cheaper, allows me to go a little bit wider. So if you were to cut these Swordmasters of Hoeth down, you could afford 4 White Lions and then, you know, potentially get some other things. You know, maybe cut 1 unit of Dragon Princes and get, you know, a mage, maybe upgrade these guys to Lothern Seaguard. You know, there's some different types of things you can do, but the 4 Dragon Prince build can potentially be very good against Chaos, so hope you guys enjoyed watching this battle. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.